Hey, praise the Lord, guys. I'm Shaw Greenhorn. And straightway Jesus and his disciples entered into a ship and came into the parts of Dalmanuta. And the Pharisees came forth and began to question with him, seeking of him a sign from heaven, tempting him. But Jesus answered and said unto them, Why does this generation ask for a sign? Verily I say unto you, that no sign shall be given unto this generation. And he left them and went into a ship and came to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, neither had they any more than one loaf in the ship with them. And Jesus came unto them and said, Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the leaven of Herod. And they began to reason among themselves, saying, It is because we have taken no bread. So here we see, the Pharisees really starting to take a more active, approach against him. Because, like I said, it's always, gradual. First, they were just there not knowing what to expect, just like everybody else. But then after a certain time, they see him do certain things, and then it begins to pique their curiosity. They start paying more attention, and then he begins to say certain things, and they begin to like when he said that sins be forgiven thee, then they would start thinking in their minds like, what is this guy doing, so. And then after that, actually start watching him to see whether he would heal on the Sabbath, or if he would say anything that they could accuse him. So then now here's the next level after that, actually coming unto him now, starting trouble, not observing him casually to see what they can see, not waiting for them to hear him say something, but so now they are initiating things. For those who have just started, when they first met somebody, I don't know, maybe things were one-sided, one way, but then when the other person finally decided that they liked you, then they started reciprocating. They started taking the initiative in certain things. So now here they are being an active participant. Now going down this road is not going to lead them anywhere good. For me, that just shows you that sometimes things can happen in front of you, and you're forced to choose a side. And depending on what side you choose, it's not always a matter of right or wrong. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just a matter of what would benefit you. It's not always life and death. It's not always right and wrong, but it's what's going to fit your life the best. Because there's many shapes that these things can take. So here they are, getting ready to embark on this journey of hating the Messiah. They know that the Messiah was to come because they know the Old Testament. They even asked him plainly, are thou the Christ, when they were, about to crucify him. So they know that there was supposed to be a Christ. They know that he was supposed to save Israel. When he was walking on the donkey and them saying Hosanna, laying down the palm trees. I heard one minister say that they thought that he would have just come and take his kingdom right there and take possession of everything. And that's what they were expecting. So here they are about to start actively coming against this Messiah. And if you understand the greatest advances in human knowledge, human understanding, just human gains, period, they came by a person that asked themselves a question. How do I create this? How do I fix this? How do I make this better? That's the question that they started with, I guarantee you. Then they created something that maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. Then they revised that over time. And then over time, it got better and better. Be careful of the journey that you start. Sometimes, self-reflecting is good. Being able to catch yourself and not be puffed up by pride to say that, I'm wrong and I'm on a wrong path. I need to stop. A lot of people, they don't have that reserve. And if you know human beings are, that, they'll reason and argue that they are always right. They are the ones that right. That's right. And sometimes it's hard for them to see reason because, all these scribes and Pharisees, chief priests, elders, and Sadducees, they were so right that they were right. They were so thinking that they were right. And they crucified the Messiah that they were looking for. He didn't show up how they wanted him to. They wanted him to show up as their expectation, to pick up where they left off, to carry on their traditions, to hold their values, to have their point of view, to see things from their eyes. And when he came, what did he say? You guys have it completely wrong. You guys devour widows' houses. You encompass land and sea to find one proselyte. When you do, you make him a twofold more child of hell than yourself. You guys are children of hell. John the Baptist said, Thou generation of vipers, who I warned you to flee from the wrath to come. They're expecting him to come and join unto them so they can say unto him, Well done. They're not looking for a well done from him. So now when he came and started, overturning the money changers' table like he did in the temple, in everything that he saw them do, that's all he did. He overturned the money changers' table. He reproved them. He rebuked them. He took it, as a battle of egos. They thought that it was their ego versus his ego, and who's right and who's wrong. Not understanding that these things are what's on God's heart. The God that you guys say that you serve, well, these are the things that's on his heart. For whatever reason you guys are not hearing, that he sent, the best one he could. He didn't send a prophet. It wasn't a Jeremiah or Elijah. It wasn't a Nehemiah, a Samuel. It wasn't a Moses. He came himself in the form of man. He came himself. So now, like I said, when you ask yourself this question, then the brain, it starts finding answers for it. Answers come when you sleep. They come when you wake up in the morning, when you eat, when you observe other things. You relate it to what it is that you're searching for, and your whole world becomes about solving this question that you ask. So no, the question. So at first, like I said, they were neutral, but then little by little they began to come against him. It got so big that what did they do? They said, "All right, let's crucify him." That's the final solution that they came up with. The question that they, like I said, be careful of the question that you ask, because the final question that they had was to crucify him. That's the final answer they had to the question that they were asking themselves. And this was built over time, over time, over time. And look, they were completely wrong. But pride, what is pride? Pride tells you that you're unable to say that I was wrong. You're unable to search yourself. I'd like to compare it as being loved by a parent sometimes. Especially a mother, because the father is the one that will correct you, right? No, when you were a little child, right? I mean, you did things, and your mom will always love you, right? If you got in trouble, she would get you out. And you learn that, mom has your back, right? So you don't really need to worry or accept, certain things. It's the same program that's left over, because now they're saying, oh, Jesus, he's coming and he's saying all these things. And he's really pointing us out. So now if I go and tell mom's going to make everything right. I don't really have to change or do anything, because, it's a man that understands that he's responsible for his environment. It's a man that understands that, if he breaks that window, he's got to fix it. He's got to fix it. It's a man that knows that, when he does wrong, he's got to make things right. He doesn't seek the easy way out. He doesn't, argue in impossibilities. Because, all these things that he was saying unto them, did they ever introspect? Did they ever look inside? Did they ever, question and reason? All right, so he's saying this thing about us, that we devour widows' houses. Do we devour widows' houses? Well, Miss James down there, yeah, I kind of asked her for half her savings. Do we make outside clean, but the inside is full of adultery, thefts, fornication, lasciviousness, and all these things? He says that we overvalue the tradition of the elders, but then we're saying Corban unto the parents. Do we do these things? Did they ever stop and reason and look? No, they were not able to do that. It was pride. The padlock on that door was pride. That's the first thing they had to pull off. And then they had to open that door and sort out their issues one by one. The Bible says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling before God. But they were standing also behind their authority. If they were the religious leaders, then they could do whatever they want. And because they set the tone, right? I really see this thing happen in the world, where we think that we're going to set things a certain way. And then when God, does return the final time, that he's going to show up and he's just going to fit in and be that last puzzle piece in the picture that we have created. We're building a picture from a puzzle, and we're putting all the pieces in place, and there's one piece left. We think that when the Lord returns, he's just gonna show up and be that last piece and to just complete the picture. That's why you see people arguing for certain things when they know that it's wrong, because they just believe that we can set the tone, we can set the stage, and that when he shows up, he's just gonna have to admit and agree with everything that we are doing. Be careful of the question that you ask yourself, because you might just start finding answers or solutions to it to achieve it. Whatsoever you believe, you can achieve, right? Self-development and self-help is such a useful tool, because it gives you the tool. Like I said one time, it gives you the tool to perform surgery on yourself. I even said that, imagine being a mechanic and the only thing you had was a wrench, just one wrench. What would you be able to do with that one wrench? Well, we don't realize that we're walking around with only one wrench. We don't even understand just one way of thinking and seeing things one way. Not being able to. It's like looking at a picture of a place and just seeing one thing. Not being able to realize, well, okay, so we're in the living room. There's a TV, there's a couch, there's a carpet, there's a cat, there's a dog, there's a dog bowl, there's the water in the dog bowl, there's a fish bowl, there's a fridge right there, there's a TV guide, there's a painting on the wall. It's like self-development. You are able to take all these things apart and see each and everything. So now you might say, well, I don't like that picture. I want to change that picture. Look, the couch is red. I want to make the couch blue. You're able now to take control of your mind and your life. So this whole, verse of scripture, it shows them being a more active participant against him. When you were a baby, you could, when they laid you, wherever they laid you, that's where you were. You stayed there until somebody else came and picked you up. Then you learn to roll over. Then you got to be careful you don't roll off the bed. Then you learn to sit up and crawl. Then you learn to stand for a little bit. Then you would fall. Then you took a couple steps. And then now, further down, now you can do gymnastics, right? So they are progressing right now. They are progressing towards hating the Messiah. And if you look at them, they have all the confidence in the world. So then you could ask the question, just because I fully believe in what I'm doing, does that make it right? There's a way that seems right unto a man, but the way thereof is destruction, right? That the Bible says that every man's way is right in his own eyes. Every man's way, you have to understand. And the worst, if you don't have the tools, every man's way is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weigheth the spirits. Because you look at yourself, like I said, with just one thing. But with all these tools, with God, He looks at you. When God looks at you, you see yourself as just one person. Oh God, and you say, I'm a good person. Well, God will say that, well, okay, so you're kind, you don't mind being kind, but you hold on to grudges too long. That's one thing. And over here, you're a glutton. You eat too much. Over here, you're reckless with your money. You like to gossip. Here's one thing over here. And he'll show you all these pieces of the picture, right? All right, so let's get into these scriptures. He starts out saying, and straightway Jesus entered into a ship with his disciples and came into the parts of Dalmanutha. So we're heading to Dalmanutha. I always say that, they don't always give the place that we're going. So we just came from, Tyre and Sidon to the Sea of Galilee into the coast of Decapolis, right? So now we're going into Dalmanutha. We just saw them arguing with the scribes and Pharisees there, which were of Jerusalem. They were in a different place. I believe these, scribes and Pharisees, they came from Jerusalem and the chief priests, and they were, finding fault with him, his disciples, not keeping the tradition of the elders, not washing their hands before they eat. And he showed them how they put the tradition of elders above the law of God, the commandments of God, how they, break the law of God, to honor their parents by telling them Korban, which is their tradition. God said, honor thy mother and father, but you guys are telling them Korban. It's okay to not do any more for them. We saw the Syrophoenician woman. It is not meet to tell the children's bread and cast it to little dogs. We saw the man that he was deaf and had the speech impediment. Put his finger in his ear and then spit and touch his tongue. So now here we are from Decapolis now going on to Dalmanutha. So it says, and straightway he entered into a ship with the disciples and came into the parts of Dalmanutha. All right, so the next verse it says, and the Pharisees came unto him and began to question with him, seeking of him a sign from heaven, tempting him. So when it says they're tempting him, they're not doing these things of a genuine heart. They're not doing these things to believe. Like I said, they've already asked that question and they're heading down that road. So now them asking this question, they're actually seeking information further harden their hearts to go down this road. I often say that learn to separate emotions from logic sometimes. Because if you go into a store and you put a bottle of water to pay for it and they say $2, if you go in there happy, they're not gonna say, okay, you only have to pay $1. If you go in there, sad and depressed, you're not gonna say it costs more, $3. No matter the time of day you go there, it's gonna be $2. They're actually looking to justify what they want to do using their emotion, the emotion of anger and being self-righteous, saying that yeah, he deserves this, what we're about to do. But what's wrong is wrong, right? Doesn't matter the time of day. So you see them right now. That's actually what they're doing. When it says tempting him, they're going there with the wrong heart. You see, whatever they use right now, whatever he says, they're going to use it against him and they're going to use it to harden their heart. So now, all right, so, what I'm hoping to show at least someone is that, do you see how you collect data, prove what you already believe? Because hardly ever do we use it to correct the misconceptions that we have in our own minds. And look, look at what they're doing here, about to, persecute unto death the Messiah, who they are supposed to be waiting for. And look at how they believe it, and there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. They're completely right. As a matter of fact, them spitting in his face and slapping him when they arrested him, it was really showing that it really was about ego. Like, how dare you speak to us like that? Who you think you are? It wasn't about facts or the truths. It's just about my ego versus yours. And look at how wrong they are. Do you understand now why the Bible can say that there's a way that seems right to a man, or every man's way is right to him own self? Look at them. None of them could ever even question and say that we were wrong. I want you to understand just how, when you go far enough down that road, you'll even, do things to say the person deserved it. So asking him, tempting him. Who is a tempter? I thought the devil was a tempter. What does the devil do? He shows up and he sets something before you, hoping that you'll make the wrong decision. They weren't asking him these things so that they could believe, to strengthen their belief and their faith. And, I like to say keep your eyes on the bottom line, because, when they did arrest him and they started spitting on him and smacking him, was there no one to say that, we become a bunch of hooligans? Where's honor? Where's our decorum? Because they love, decorum, and they love procedure and all these things, right? Where is our decency? We can't do this in a court of law, these things. And at this point, they were all asleep, and nobody could wake up to turn the ship around. So the Pharisees came unto him, asking of him a sign from heaven. So, all these things that he's done, we just saw him heal, like I said, the deaf and the impediment in speech right in front of their faces. The Syrophoenician woman, it is not meet to take the children's bread cast to little dogs. Well, her daughter was at home. So unless they would have followed her home, they wouldn't have seen that one. that it was true. The man with the legion into the swine. You know what would have been an interesting question if I was him, knowing that I just did all these miracles, fishes on the loaves, 5,000. How many Pharisees were there that ate of those loaves and fishes? I would have asked them, so, all right, tell me, just so I can understand what you mean. When you say a sign from heaven, what would you like to see? That's what I would have said. What would you like to see? Just to see what they would have said. If they would have said something that I have not already done. I don't know, they want me to like levitate off the ground like Superman, flying in the sky. That's what they want to see. Because how many miracles do I need to do for them to believe? But then again, they weren't looking to believe, they were looking to accuse. And this is just the angle that they chose. They could have chose anything. They could have came and said anything. Pharisees came onto him and began to question with him, asking a sign from heaven. From heaven they wanted a sign. I don't know, maybe they wanted to see an angel. I don't know, maybe they wanted to see him to take them to heaven with him. Maybe that's it. They wanted him to take them to heaven and show them heaven. Alright, so the next one says, and Jesus sighed deeply in his spirit and said, why does this generation seek for a sign? Verily I say unto you that there shall no sign be given to this generation. So, he sighed deeply in his spirit. That's frustration, really. That's like, wanting to back up and just like get out of their presence. That's like, having a whole 3-hour movie to watch, but wanting to know everything in 4 seconds. I believe he was saying, where do I begin? Where do I begin? You want me to begin at the end where I show you guys your doom for everything that you're about to do and you are doing even right now? Do I show you how the many wise men and prophets desire to see my day and they did not get to see it, and you guys are here doing this and you are supposed to be their successors? Where do I begin? That's like trying to put a 6-month-old baby through medical school. Enrolling a 6-month-old baby through medical school. When they sit there and if they can form words, the first question they would ask is, what's that? What would the teacher say? Where do I even begin? First of all, you need to go to kindergarten. You need to learn shapes and colors. Then you need to learn numbers and letters. That's what was happening right here. He sighed deeply in his spirit. He sighed deeply in his spirit. Where do I begin? This generation asking for a sign. Verily I say unto you, no sign shall be given unto this generation. In one interpretation, he said unto them, except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was in the belly of the whale 3 days and 3 nights, verily I say unto you. Verily I say unto you, that's the closest Jesus came to swearing. Like, he said, you have heard it of them of old time said, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but I say unto thee, swear not at all, not by heavens, for it is God's throne, neither by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king, neither by thine own head, cause thou canst not make one hair black nor white. Verily I say unto you, that's the closest Jesus ever came to swearing. Like, I swear by God, verily I say unto you, verily. So then it says, and he left them and entered into a ship and came to the other side. So I guess we're maybe not in Dalmanutha anymore. But he left them. You can imagine God leaving you, and he left them. Not saying that he hadn't been left them at this point, and he left them. You won't know what that means until it's too late. Sometimes we don't know the value of things. Sometimes we don't know the value of things until that moment where it hits you. Because remember, when Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, he said that, Esau was hungry, and he came in from hunting, and he didn't catch anything, so he couldn't cook anything. I was cooking pottage, sodding pottage, and he said, give me some of that, because I'm about to die. He said, Jesus, and then, Jacob said, sell me that birthright. Esau said, what use is this to me if I am dead? Go ahead, take it. So he sold his birth, so he did give his birthright up, but he didn't know what it meant. The moment that he finally understand what it meant was when, the father was about to die, and he sent him to go hunt. The mother, she went and took a kid from she sent him to take a kid from the flock. And then she made him meat so that he would bless him. After, Jacob came and took the blessing and left, then Esau came in. And then he said, here I am, father. Then the father says, who art thou? And he began to tremble. And then the father was like, oh no. That brother had come and stolen away that blessing. The Bible said that Esau let out a great cry. He let out a great cry. Now you see this great cry that he let out. That's what you gave up that day. That's what you see that day. That's what you gave up. You gave that up. Not saying that it was right, not saying it was wrong, but that's what you get. That's what you gave up. You gave that up. You just didn't understand what it meant. Because, this great cry would mean that he was still hoping for it, not knowing that he had given it up. So right here it's saying, and Jesus, he left them. He left them and came over to the other side. They're not going to know what it means until that moment where they shall give out a great cry. In the next verse it says, now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, neither had they any more than one loaf in the ship with them. So it's setting up scenario here. It's giving you the background about what's about to happen. So it's showing you that So they did not take bread. So we just came from feeding the 4,000 with the 7 loaves and a couple fishes. The first one it gave that it was 2 fishes, 5 loaves and 2 fishes. But the second one, it was 7 loaves and a couple fishes. It didn't really tell the number of fishes. To 4,000 men taking up 7 baskets. The first one was to 5,000 men taking up 12 baskets. So after all of that, bread. But remember, after that, they did go into Tyre and Sidon, and it doesn't say what happened to the 7 baskets of fragments. Because the first one, it was a little boy, the little lad that had 5 loaves and 2 fishes, right? But this one, it just says that they searched and that's what they found. Was it all from one person or was it from different people? They like to say that it's a little boy that took the 12 baskets of fragments. But I mean, how is he gonna carry all that, right? And would they help him take it home? Yeah, so what happened to these fragments, here? So here they have just 1 loaf, not more than 1 loaf in the ship with them. And if it's not broken, then it's not from that, because remember, they took up a set of fragments. The bread, it was all broken in fragments. So it couldn't have been from there. And why it was all broken in fragments? Because, it was made a point of that. Because when he in the communion, he said, "Take, eat. This is my body, which is broken for you." So there was nothing left that was whole, because he was completely broken for us. But I could always be wrong. I mean, So then it said, Jesus came unto them and said, "Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the leaven of Herod." So he's giving them a warning here, which they're about to miss. Leaven in the Bible usually represents, hypocrisy. He directly stated that. I forget in which verse it was, but he did say it. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and scribes, which is hypocrisy. But also remember that leaven was also used to mean something positive, because there's a parable: the kingdom of heaven is like unto a woman which hid leaven in 3 measures of meal until the whole was leavened. So here we see it using, to mean something positive. So in the last one it says, "And they began to reason amongst themselves, saying, It's because we have taken no bread." So now, why he's frustrated, why we see a different level of frustration with him now than earlier. Because remember, he had sent them out 2 by 2 and given them power over unclean spirits and to heal all manner of sickness and diseases. So, this field trip, it was really to sharpen them. It was really to get them, force them to really recall everything they have learned. So you see, at this level, they should be operating from a different standpoint. They should be more, geared. They should be more ready. They should be more flowing. And that's why we will see him have a greater level of frustration with them, at these points and further on. Because, he said, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of Herod." And they're saying, well, it's because we have taken no bread. Because, leaven is yeast that used to make bread. But then, if they were thinking, they could reason within themselves, saying, well, what does bread have to do with the scribes and Pharisee or King Herod? It's not like they deal in bread. They don't specialize in bread. I mean, But woe unto King Herod. Remember, he had just beheaded John the Baptist. So that's why we see his name here being mentioned. Because Jesus did say, "Verily I say unto you that among those born of women, there had not risen a greater than John the Baptist. Nevertheless, he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." After he said, "What went you out to see? A reed shaken in the wind, a man dressed in soft raiment. Behold, those that wear soft raiment be in king's palaces. What went you out to see? A prophet, I say unto you, more than a prophet." Remember when they tried to tempt him that one time, how did he answer them? It was by John the Baptist. He said, they wanted to say unto him, "By what does he do these miracles, and who gave him this authority?" Then he said, "If I will answer, if you first answer me one question, the baptism of John, was it of heaven or of men?" So now we see Herod right now, bringing unto himself a greater destruction. Why would he say, beware of the leaven of Herod? What is leaven? What did I say? It's hypocrisy, right? So how was King Herod a hypocrite? Remember when he had so many mixed feelings, because it said that he had laid hold and put John in prison, for he had said, "It's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife," Herodias, his brother Philip's wife that he had married. And then it said that he would have put him to death, but then he feared the people. But then after that it said, he knew that John was a righteous man and a just man, and he often heard him. And in hearing him, he did many things. So he listened to him and he believed him, and he knew that he was a righteous man. And even when the Herodias wanted his head in that charger, what did it say? It said that nevertheless, for the oath's sake, he was greatly distressed. So therein is his hypocrisy. In all of that, that's King Herod's hypocrisy. In that he would lay hold on him for speaking the truth to him. But then while he had him in his prison, and even before that, he would listen to him and hear everything he had to say and even believe him. And it almost even speaks like he was even maybe a little student of him. So therein is the hypocrisy of Herod. I am Straw Greenhorn.